with me. I'm sure you'd be here even if you weren't for college credits or like your credits that you need for your continuing education. So my name is Candace Johnson. I don't have any particular special letters behind my name. I'm probably the least scholastic person here, as I am not a counselor, I am not a psychologist, and quite frankly, I think if it were the 50s, I'd be called a quack, right? Like a person who thinks they know something and want to share it, even though I'm not educated about the classroom, okay? So it's going to be really important for the trust of this that I'm going to be really transparent about who I am, my background, all those types of things, and then use that to validate my findings, okay? Because it's a little bit different than maybe most of you. All right, so I'm about experimentation, you know, understanding two things, vulnerability and chemistry. I feel like that is the root of all things. Even as I walk through the world, and externally I am a woman and a black person, those are the two things that are like easily digestible just upon like sight, right? If the police said, what did she look like, right? Or what does they look like? A woman and a black person, right? So even as I'm digestible in that way, what else can I offer you that's actually true about who I am? Because I'm never looking at those two things to identify myself, but I understand it's the label that you're gonna receive first, right? And it's by that label that helps me to identify the chemistry we have and how someone chooses to lean into that label, how far they lean into that label as truth allows me to understand their vulnerability. Does that make sense, just from that point on? Okay. So, my name is Candace again. I was a television news producer for 15 years. I've done everything from interview Sabrina Fulton, who is Trayvon Martin's mother, you know, just months after his passing. That was probably the worst interview I've ever done in my entire life. Just because of the stoicism she held. And you could feel the grief of every mother, you know, even just the idea of losing a child. I once was a nanny and I lost a child for 5 seconds. She was just on the other side of the park and I didn't know. Just that 5 seconds was enough for me to understand the weight of something way more like, you know, devastating. You know, I'm in Philadelphia. I was born and raised there, and I spent the last 10 years of my professional career in Philadelphia. Well, the Eagles had 2 Super Bowl wins, right? So now you're on the other side of interviewing people about something that is like one of the greatest championships on earth if you ask a football player, right? And then different if I'm asking someone a question while their home is burning down behind them, or if I'm asking them a question because it's the Pope who was in Philadelphia in 2015 and I got a chance to interview him as well. The question for me was always the same. How do you feel? How do you feel? You know, that's the jumping off point for how we're gonna do anything else. How do you feel? And what I learned when leaving news, and actually when I was exiting news, I should say this, is that it became increasingly clear to me that people actually don't know how they feel. At best, they just know how to give an answer to that question. And I'm sure you know as counselors, just because you give an answer doesn't make it correct, right? Authentic, real. And of course, your job as counselors is to be able to decipher, am I being told what I want to hear, right? Or am I being given something that I can now help fruitfully carry this person to their realization? But how do we do that? So now let me backtrack. I just told you the root of it for me, right? I was a television news producer. So I do feel like I have interviewed everyone. That was professionally. Personally, I was a party girl with a press pass, okay? So after the 9 to 5 was done, I then got to spend personal time with these people. The athletes, the protesters, people who've lost everything, and now I just want to have a dinner with them because I was so curious. Empathy was always in the backdrop of my work. So now that the story is done, well, the person still has to survive. And now I'm so curious about the human experience beyond the headline. And so that really fed me more than anything else, being able to say, okay, yes, you're a Super Bowl player, but you're really sad when it comes to your interpersonal relationships. You know what I mean? Or, okay, yes, your home just burned down, but look, you have a community of people who have taken you in, taken your children in, and without a beat skipped, you're still moving about your life. The only thing that is the issue is that your physical home is gone, right? And so being able to understand the nuances between what is a tragedy and what is just a diverted, motion of life. Okay, well, for me, I use God, I use all kinds of things, so just forgive me in this instance, I'm gonna use God. Okay, God redirected my life, but does that make it a tragedy? Or does it mean it's a lesson I wasn't expecting, nor was I needing, nor do I want it, right? Like that kind of thing. To go just a step back before even just that, the work. It was my curiosity, my self-esteem, and my confidence that I think carried me through even to be able to get to my profession. My dad was a basketball and football player, and he was a coach by the time I was born. The spirit of my dad was, you are enough, and you need to show it. Have you ever heard of the phrase peacocking? Yeah, those bigger-than-life guys. My dad was the guy in the 80s that wore a fishnet crop top with those with Speedos on, and those Technicolor sunglasses, and he was just like a power pose on the beach. So think about American men in the 80s, and then my dad just showboating, you know what I mean? So when you're growing up with that kind of energy in your home, you have no other choice than to be powerful, excellent, and certainly not able to hide. I've never had an opportunity to be a wallflower. I'm always so interested in how those people survive. I'm usually getting all of the attention, all those kinds of things. So when it comes to anything I'm doing, I emote out so much because that was what was trained in me, that it's easy for everyone to pick up my energy. It's easy for everyone to have a feeling about me, good, bad, or indifferent, and it's usually one of the three. But usually a lot of what people attach themselves to me derives from their own vulnerability, right? And chemistry, it all comes back to that. So when I was in my last 2 years of news, it was during COVID, okay? COVID, lockdown. The biggest things in COVID were not the tens of thousands of people whose bodies were being shoveled into trucks because of the death rate was so high. It was, how do we get the NBA and the NFL back on TV? Hey, I know, we'll take them all down to Disneyland or Disney World, we'll put them in a bubble, you know what I mean? And we'll get sports back on TV, and then Americans will stop being depressed. Americans are only depressed, not because of COVID, because they have nothing to do. You guys just wanna work, and you wanna watch sports, and then it'll all be fine. I did not agree with that message. That did not go along with what I knew 15 years of interviewing people. That did not seem to be the cornerstone of the truth. And that started to be the thing that peeled back my relationship with news. Before that, it was about, hey, being honest about what's happening in my community, where we thrive, where we divide, and starting the bridge of communication. It was in COVID that I realized there is no bridge of communication. It was what people want, what they're expecting, and then who's responsible for it, right? What people want, everybody had an idea of what they wanted. What they're expecting, well, not a whole lot, actually. People actually don't expect that much from their government, except to be after work. They actually don't expect for people to help them. I learned the hard way. And then finally, what are we getting? I didn't care for what we were getting. So if I don't like the messaging, and I also think that the bridge to communication is broken, then what am I doing? I was a morning show producer, which means that my show was from 4:30 in the morning until 9 a.m. Went off at 10 p.m. or 10 a.m., right? That means that for 15 years, I did not sleep in the same bed with my lovers, okay? I went to bed at 2 p.m. and I would wake up at 9 p.m. I was living like a vampire. So now I'm living like a vampire, not enjoying my life because I'm here to provide a service to you that you can't even receive. Oh no. Well, then I quit. I did you guys, I'm sure have seen the movie Jerry Maguire. I did that in the newsroom. Cubbies and all. I didn't have a fish, but I did have my headset in my hands, and I flipped out. I just felt we are not of service if the bridge of communication is broken. I feel like as counselors, you guys can really understand that sense, right? So I took a year off and I got myself well again, right? Because there is no wellness living by the graveyard shift. So, okay, first thing I did when I got home was cry, because I just threw in the trash a 15-year career at one of the top 4 international outlets. And so, if you burn a bridge with one, you're done with all of them. So, okay, so then who am I? And I remember that night laying in bed and repeating that sentence, oh my God, who am I? Who am I? I'm not a news producer. I'm not the most powerful person in this city anymore. Who am I? And what was really devastating is I had no answer. And then the next day I thought, okay, so then my life's work is going to be to determine who am I? If anything that could be taken away from me is no longer a part of my identity, then who am I? So a year of playing, sleeping, laughing, talking to only people who love me and care about me, had something positive to say to me, being able to look at people in their eyes for the first time and say, oh my God, look at how white your eyeballs are. There must be something about wellness that you know, right? But then on the other side, saying to someone, you look, and I remember saying this to my best friend, I was like, you look exhausted all the time. I was like, you look pretty. But there's like a vacantness behind your eyes that I've never noticed before. And then watching her be like, mind your business. You know what I mean? Watching, right? Like when you get into someone and they're not really like, right, back off a little bit, right? And then seeing how there were some people who were really thankful that I am now spending the time looking at them, and there were some people who were repulsed by it, right? And then living in that experience. About a year into my being able to finally answer this question, who am I? Well, I'm a loudmouth. I'm very hard-headed. I'm incredibly greedy, and I want to help. So what do we do with those skill sets? Well, wanting to get back into a place of fixing the bridge of communication, within 8 hours I created this game. It's called Touchy Feely Intimacy Card Game. And I wanted to create it with two very important fundamental understandings. Number one, talking and touching are a part of the human experience. You cannot have a fruitful one if you subtract either one of those two. That's just the truth. A lot of us will choose not to speak, or will choose not to physically engage, but only from one reason: fear of safety, fear of danger. That's it. There's no one walking around, I think I shared this with Remy, I said it, there's no one walking around going, oh, I don't talk and I don't touch because life's just better that way. You know what I mean? Oh, I just learned from all the great experiences I've had that when you don't say anything and you don't, connect with anyone, that's the plan. That's how it's all gonna work out, right? So that was the first thing. It has to be talking, it has to be touching. You can opt out of whichever one, but when you choose your opt-out, now I understand what we need to work on, right? That's the consideration, the thing you opt out of. And then two, it's a universal play experience. Meaning, if it survives in any scenario, if it survives in any experience, then that means it's valid in any experience. And if you choose to opt out of it, then that's the blockage, right? So there are two things that you're gonna see. Your considerations, what you can work on, and your blockages, where you're not allowing yourself to live in, all right? So when I say universal play experience, what does that mean? We're gonna talk about it, and we're gonna talk about the game. So before I even go into opening up the game, let's talk about some of the benefits of the game. So again, I wanna remember something that I said to you guys earlier. I am a hard-headed person. How do you counsel? How do you help a hard-headed person? For me, and what I do with my clients is I give them first-hand experiences that are undeniable. Okay? Hey, I see this in you. Okay, well, I don't see it in myself. Okay, great. Well, let's create an experience where now you can not only see it because I'm saying it and you're experiencing it with me, but now you can recreate the same situation, the same scenario with everyone else, and now you can see if they see what I see. Now, if 10 people say the same thing, sure, as a hard-headed person, I can go, well, they're all dumb. But is everyone else dumb, or am I dumb, right? My mom used to always say, if everyone else did, it's me. Just make it clean and clear, okay? So number one, it was important that it's the first game teaching your nervous system education, right? People don't understand their nervous systems. At best, they can use words like triggered. They can use words like anxious. They can use words like nervous. But what does that mean? What does that mean, okay? Designed to set boundaries by exploring consent. The beauty of this game is boundaries is not actually on the table at all. The assumption is that we are safe, okay? And we'll talk about how that safety is created. But boundaries, and please, like I said earlier, you guys are way more educated than me. I really, really implore you to challenge me. Cut me off, say what you need to say. I actually really appreciate that. Raise your hand if you feel like you want to be, less critical sounding, but by all means, please, really dig into this. Because it's really just been in my exploration that we're only ever talking about boundaries when someone's feeling unsafe. Or if I'm going someplace you don't want me to go, which makes you assume unsafe. But if I'm safe and you're safe, then now we're only talking about consent. Does that make sense to everyone so far? I want to make sure. Okay. All right, so multi-use communication tactics. What does that mean, right? Well, like I said, we're talking about both the verbal connection, and then we're talking about the physical part, which we'll get into in a little bit. Encourages nourishing interpersonal relationships, especially when we're talking about conflict resolution. right? We all have beef with somebody. I feel like I have beef with everybody all the time. Never because I'm rude or disrespectful, but because any human being that shows up as the full iteration of themselves is going to shake the room, right? If there are a lot of spirits in one space, the energy will vibrate, right? So then how now, if there's someone who's misread me or it's just different from me, how can we still exist in the same space? 5 determines interest without violation and incident. One of the uses of the games is we use it with people, primarily women, but we use it with people who are re-exploring pleasure after violation. How can I set these very safe boundaries for myself, or these very safe consent markers for myself where, yes, I'm still leaning into my greater pleasure, but with the understanding that I've already had a massive violation, so I don't want to end up back where I started, but also life is pleasure. So what do I need, what do I deserve, and how can I regain that? Heals loneliness by bridging communication. A lot of us only feel lonely because we feel like we're the only one. What I learned in my 1 year alone is that loneliness is a signal that I should be doing something differently, okay? Because to be alone is actually a joy. Ask any parent, you know what I mean? Like, if you ask anyone who lives in a home filled with people or who lives a life where all of their time is given, then to be alone, to have a moment of clarity is like, there are people who pay for that, right? It's called a spa vacation. But when we're talking about loneliness, what we're talking about is a disconnect from the greater society, right? And so there's one simple question can reconnect you, even if you're still alone. And then 7, play advancing emotional intelligence using your own internal perspective, which is so important. Again, going back to that hard-headed piece. You can say whatever you want to me, but until you give me something that I can chew on, then I can't digest it, okay? So, okay, touchy-feely. So when we open up the box, and you guys are all gonna have an opportunity to play with 90 minutes together. So, when you open up the box, there are 4 levels into the game, okay? Level 1, we'll talk about easy icebreakers, all right? We are going to play level 1, and I'm very curious to see how far up we can get. There are 4 levels in total, okay? So level 1, who's level 1 for? Strangers, get to know you, first date, group experiences. I call it the emotionally mute, the emotionally suspicious, if we're talking about it from a clinical point of view, right? A lot of my clients, so I do coaching, I should have said that now. Now I do coaching. So I am actually the bridge to get to you all, the counselors. I take on people who either have been told they have a problem, but they don't believe it. People who, honestly, the number 1 type of client I get is someone who just wants someone they can debate with so that they can prove that they actually are healthy, which is something that only an unhealthy person would do, right? So emotionally mute, the emotionally suspicious, general conversations, and also what's not on, oh, it is on here, children's education. We found in our work that when children can identify their own feelings, they're actually really employed to self-soothe. It makes them feel like grown-ups, and all children ever want to do is be a grown-up, right? So, then level 2, compassion-based therapy is what I call level 2, okay? Finding grace and understanding for people whom you don't like or you don't understand, which is going to be at least 50% of the world, right? You can only like you or not like you. Those are the 2 options, right? So coworkers, in-laws, exes, co-parenters, roommates, right? One of my friends lovingly said inmates. We're going to be sharing an 8x10 together. You better find some compassion-based therapy for that person, right? So it's really finding a grace and understanding for people that you're forced to share space with. Why is this important? Because as a news producer, I'm always filled with fun facts. I'm that know-it-all girl, right? The number 1 rate of incidents isn't the people that you know, it's the people that you're trapped with who you don't understand. That's why that passion comes out, right? It's that like, oh, I couldn't handle myself, they just said something and I popped. It's in that, it's because I don't actually have a relationship with you, but we're stuck here, okay? So that's something. Okay, so then level 3, convey fondness, right? People that you are either close with, maybe people you love, people you have a fondness for, but there's no trust present. You know, in shorter-term relationships, maybe it's been breached or violated. In longer-term relationships, it's been breached or violated. In shorter-term relationships, maybe it's implied, but it's not established, right? I'm giving you, as you guys are all right now, you're implying your trust with me because you're here, right? And probably by the end of it, we'll know if it's established, right? Like I said, you guys can walk out and be like, oh, she's a quack, you know. So when we're talking about, who are we talking about? Yes, new friendships, new close companions, but let's go beyond that. New work friends, right? You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, this person is so great, I respect them in this way. New mentors for me. I'm learning in this new space that I need to be narrated, I need to be guided by people who know, but I'm realizing, well, there are two types of mentors I have. I have mentors who respect my work and they really believe in my work. And I have mentors who, I don't know if they respect me, but they definitely don't believe in my work. They still give me advice. But because I'm understanding the lens in which they're giving me the advice from, it helps for me to determine whether I take the advice and also what that advice means. I have one mentor who said, come to North Carolina, do the talk, it's gonna be great, they're gonna get it. I had another mentor who said, listen, you created this brand, it's super beautiful, you can get a job making $250,000 a year in a corporate space, why would you wanna do this, right? And you can even just in that, here, well, which one of those mentors was the one who believes in me, and which one of those mentors was just giving me good advice, right? Do you understand what I'm saying here? Okay. So then level 4, right? The people that we are the closest to, where love and trust are implied, right? So obviously, naturally, especially when you're talking about an intimacy card game, people think of intimacy, they think of sex, right? So it's easy to think, okay, lover. Sure, absolutely lover, right? But what about your childhood best friends? You know, what about the people that you know that there is no deception, there is no lying, or you just want to even play into that, right? This is my full safety with these people, my confidants. These are the people, okay, that you're playing level 4 with. I don't imagine that we're going to get to level 4 in here, but at the end of the day, it really is just about how comfortable are we sharing verbally and sharing physically, okay? So, what I want to start with before we actually get into the gameplay is 2 different scenarios here. One playing level 1, one playing level 3. I always like to start with the children playing because then it allows for every skeptical adult to realize that there is a lean-in here if children can do it, okay? The youngest player we have on our website is 3 years old. These are actually my nieces who are 8 and 10 here. Now they're 10 and 12. But again, in my family, we raised the children with incredibly high self-esteem, a high set of values about who you are, and hopefully an impenetrable skin that only allows for you to digest what you want to chew on, not what someone gives to you, which is what we do with children's lives. We give them things and then we expect them to be. In my family, we unfortunately have to knock up against hard heads after we build this shell of confidence and self-esteem. So with my 2 nieces, here is the hardest hit of the 2, the 10-year-old, answering our level 1 question, how easy is it for you to apologize or make amends? Do you typically factor blame? So think about that for yourself while we're just listening to her.
So, are we going to go first? That's me. Are we going to go first? That's a great question for the 2 of you. How easy is it for you to apologize?
She's the worst.
And, or make amends. You know what amends means? It means make it right. How easy is it for you to apologize? It is very hard. I will start crying and everything. Sometimes I will run out the room. So yeah, that's really hard. Like, it's somebody else's fault. Do you know the apology? No. It's somebody else's fault. No. But if it's my fault, yes, I will apologize. But I won't say it until like someone. What if it's someone else's fault, but it's your responsibility? I'll apologize.
So 2 things there, right? Number 1, you got to see that she knows herself. She's just not really interested in changing herself, right? Like that whole I know I'm wrong, I'll round the room, I'll cry, and it's gonna take me 1 month to apologize. Well, that is definitely the women in my family, right? But the thing is that, yes, she's gonna still behave that way, and she still does, but she knows. That's the part, she knows, right? And here's the other really interesting part that actually this was shot 2 years ago, like I shared, but I wanna show you, and this is what's so interesting, right, is her sister's face. Which, right, listen to, you see her, you saw her face? And isn't that her facial expression like, you know, she said, I want to apologize for 1 month, or she's like, Like, that's sad, girl. And don't you do that sometimes where you hear yourself, like you hear someone talking to you and think to yourself, you're so pitiful. I do it with a lot of my clients, but because I'm not you, I'm not counselors, I'm a coach. So I actually get to call people pitiful to their faces. I actually did 2 nights ago with a client. I was like, you're just so pitiful. And when you find yourself a counselor, some of the notes I want to give your counselor is that you're pitiful. And you need to hear it. So I want you to again, just check that, listen to that one more time. So right, it's that like understanding that even in that, right, even as we're listening to someone else's answers, well, I can tell, okay, well, that's not how I am, or that's not how I want to be, right? Okay, so that obviously is 2 sisters playing, and mainly it's me asking the questions, right? So in this scenario, we had it labeled as 2 friends playing touchy-feely, but it's not necessary. I wrote friends as sort of the broader messaging there, friends, right? But it's just a quick label because it had to go on YouTube and you wanted to have reach, whatever. But I actually want us to watch this, and I want you all to tell me if you can determine what the relationship is between these 2 people, just based on the play, okay? So that's just something I want you to think about as we are pressing play here. You're determining what the relationship is between these 2 people.
What do you desire most about?
Ooh, what do I desire most about you? And the desire is it.
Pretty self-explanatory.
I don't understand what the word is, but like desire about you. It's like, okay, I'll go with this one because this is where I was going anyway. I am really attracted to people who are comfortable with who they are and are also adaptable and flexible and just understanding of people, situations, places, spaces, and I feel like that's the kind of person we want. Like you're someone who you're laid back, you're really chill, but at the same time, that doesn't correlate to like not having boundaries or not being able to assert yourself. Like you have this nice balance between assertiveness and understanding.
Okay, before I get to the second part, does anyone want to just guess what the relationship is between these 2 people?
First date.
First date?
Recently started dating, I wouldn't say first.
Okay. And may I ask, what makes you get there?
I actually, you're probably more accurate. I maybe would have guessed coworkers and then like starting to date. Like there is some degree that they know each other already, but they're exploring a little bit. Are we possibly going to be this attractive?
Okay.
I originally thought first date because she was saying this is what I like in someone. In other words, I'm letting you know this is what I look for in someone. But then she said, and I like that about you. So I already know you have this, or I believe you have this quality. So then that's like, well, it's not more like they at least know each other somewhat before a first date. So that's my, who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. None of us know yet. Yeah. Does anyone else have anything to say before we move on? Yeah, of course.
I felt like either what they were saying or friends, he wants to date. And she's still thinking about it.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it seemed like. And especially at the very beginning when she said desire is an answer to worry, he's like, so that's what it says. And that to me was like, there's a tension there, but she's feeling it out.
Yeah. Anyone else? You're nodding your head,
I feel
yes?
like I was kind of picking up on like the same vibes.
Yeah.
That's what you said. So I'll just second that.
Yeah. Okay, fantastic. Anyone else? This is the time. 'Cause you know how it is, like, you know how I'm one of these people where I'm like, oh, I didn't say anything. I'm like, damn, I'm right. So then you're wishing you had said it because then you want the credit of being right. Does anyone else have anything?
I think there's a possibility that they could be like family members in some aspect, and that's why with like desire word was a little bit like, oh, just like they both got a little uncomfortable about it, but like maybe not like siblings, but like I don't know, just like in some relation where it's not necessarily like the attraction piece. There is like some interesting mirroring going on, and also they do seem like very like body language comfortable with one another, which like does have that established like comfortability of like a history of knowing. But yeah, they both kind of tense up a little bit around that word desire, and usually that is more in like a romantic aspect, but then we can like desire things from our family members and people who we care for that would not be like a sexual thing, but like there can be desire in those relationships also.
Yeah, super interesting what you just shared. Yeah. Anyone else? Okay, well, I will say that someone in the room was correct. Okay? And at the time that I was recording this, I had not realized that this was a therapy tool yet. The game was really created just as a thing so that, listen, well, you can't take in news if you don't even have interpersonal relationships in your home. If you don't have communication as a base point for even how you express who you are. And so at the time that I was shooting this, and in fact it was in shooting this, because I did not know their relationship when I shot them. I put the call out that, hey, I need a bunch of people to play this game. It's talking to a king, you have to be comfortable on camera. It can be any iteration of people, 2 people to 1,000 people, I don't care, I just need for a play. And so it was in me watching, and of course I'm a television news producer, so part of that is being able to see acutely through a lens. That's what I do very, very well, is to see acutely through a lens. And that's what counselors do, right? The lens may not be a camera lens, but you're looking very specifically at something, right? And here's what I noticed before we move on. Notice and this is so crazy, but notice the amount of space from here to here with her, right now, right? I'm gonna rewind back. Let's see where she starts when the question's first asked, and then where she ends up, okay? So just something to pay attention to, especially because you did hit on something so important, right? Which is like body language. So you notice already, right? This is where she is when it starts, right? Like right now, look, you see her? Yeah. She's like, and then she wags her finger like, wait a second, because you're exactly right. That word desire, I was like, wait. And then he says, well, that's what it says. And you see her kind of like, and then she does something that so many professionals do. And she's a professional woman. They're both incredibly high-performing professional people. She talked a lot. Places, spaces, but you know what I mean? Like she does the whole thing where she's just giving dialogue now. You know, but not actually answering the question about him. She said, I like people who, right? And then, hey, look, here's a box of things I like, and you can be inside the box, right? Versus making it very specific and directed to him. Okay, so that was one thing that I noticed, and so then I thought to myself, what is the relationship between these two people, right? But here's the interesting thing is, after you're asked a question, and we didn't see this with the children because with the children it's different. At that point, you're just asking the question to the children, you're letting them give their answer, and then you as the parental figure or as the model figure, then you're sort of leading in through the rest of the talk the way you want to, right? With the adults, we then bridge the talking into the touching. But how do we do that? We do that with a rating system. So here's what. Okay, yes, Craig, you just said something to me, right? I hear your answer, you said a whole lot of stuff, you didn't really say anything to me. But now I'm actually gonna rate your answer on a scale of 1 to 5 based on openness and vulnerability, right? So now it's just not about what you just shared with me, it's about how much did I actually receive or how much do I wanna call BS without hurting your feelings, right? So it's a rating of 1 and it's a one-word answer, a thoughtless answer, a disconnected answer. You said a whole lot, but you didn't say anything to me. You know what I mean? And you get that, I'm sure even in just the past weekend, right? There's some course maybe you sat in where you sat in for that hour and you're like, I didn't get anything from this. But it was great. And it was great. I just didn't get anything from it, right? And then you have people who go the other way. They say very few things, but it's so profound. You know, I find myself doing this a lot. This past week, like people were saying something, it like hits me in the chest, and I take a step back and I can be off with one sentence. So what we're about to see now, and the reason why I paused sort of in the middle is because you're gonna see a couple of things. One, you're gonna see his rating of her, right? And then 2, you're gonna see what happens when touch is present, and then we'll talk about what the actual relationship is. Does everyone understand so far? I wanna be sure, okay.
You're laid back, you're really chill, but at the same time, that doesn't correlate to like not having boundaries or not being able to assert yourself. Like you have this nice balance between assertiveness and understanding. Well, that's super desire.
Yes, I agree with 1 and 5.
Yes.
I would say
You are tough.
Now that you understand the way the game plays, I want you guys to rate your answer on a scale of 1 to 5 based on openness and vulnerability, right? And I obviously don't have to explain openness and vulnerability to you guys. I'm not even gonna pretend like I should be doing that with you, while you should probably be better educated in teaching me that. But on a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate your answer?
Like a 2, maybe? She said more about outside, like how she feels about her like outer world, more so than speaking directly to that relationship. She said, I like these things out here, you possess some of those qualities, but didn't actually like make it about their relationship.
Oh, sorry, there were hands already up. Go ahead.
I don't understand the 1 through 5. So,
Sure, absolutely.
because I don't understand people's answers without that context.
Of course. No, first of all, thank you for asking that. If you do not understand, this is a different type of game. You must ask. It's a must ask type scenario, right? So, what's your name?
Kate.
Kate. Kate, can I use you as? Sure. Okay. All right. So let's do a play really quickly. Okay. Let me get. Okay, that's level 2. So, Kate, I'm gonna have you pick any card that you like. I know, sorry, I made them, yeah. Okay, if you're comfortable, will you recite the question out loud?
How would you describe who you are right now?
Yes. So, what would happen is one of us would answer that question, right? And you know how it is, right? You're gonna give whatever you give. I am a person that really desires being understood and being seen. So, and I'm long-winded. You know, if you guys watch Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, I'm Dorit. You know, I just give it all, and people are usually bored and like checked out before I'm done, okay? But then there are some people who are a lot more concise, right? So then the goal is you're gonna answer the way you know how to answer, right? You're gonna answer the way you communicate. Then the rest of us are really rating how much we got from what you're sharing, okay? So we're rating you based on your openness and vulnerability to the answer. Do you feel comfortable answering that question?
Okay, yeah, sure.
Okay.
But like, people are rating it based on how much vulnerability they perceive.
Absolutely.
Okay, and 5 is the highest, 1 is the lowest?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. I don't know how the whole room got that but me, but oh well. I didn't get the 5 is the highest one.
It's a different type of game, listen.
No, it's not the game, it's me. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, okay. How would I describe where I'm at? An outlier. There, how do you rate me?
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. How would you describe who you are right now?
And you said you are an outlier.
Yeah.
So I would just say by body language and everything, even though there's this giggle and it sounds very uncomfortable, but it is very raw. So for me, and just looking at the whole package of what you said, that is a very vulnerable statement in a very vulnerable way. I mean, you're turning red, which I'm sorry, my husband's white, so that's a telltale from a man so they turn red. But I would just say right now, just how you're talking is it's very vulnerable to me. That's what I perceive, because usually when people are uncomfortable saying something that they really feel like that, and then you apologize too, because then I want to take it back. I said it, oopsie. Okay, go ahead and rate me. Ugh. And so I just thought you were vulnerable. It was very raw and just to the point. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. So what number did you rate her?
I would say a 5 for me, because she is so, maybe because that's how I perceive, like the more the more uncomfortable you are, probably the more you're sharing with yourself. So that's just my perception. When somebody's really uncomfortable, they're really sharing about themselves. So, yeah.
Does anyone else have a rating that you'd like to share? Sure.
She was in my wedding.
I would say for you, if I'm rating on you, like your 5, which is like on all in, that was like 3. Okay.
Yeah. And that's interesting, right? Because you have a relationship with her, right? Does anyone else have a rating that you'd like to offer? Okay. I would rate it a 1. Because as I said in the beginning, one-word answers are 1, right? Yes, the reason why you gave it is, well, multifaceted, right? Number one, you guys don't know how to play this game. Number two, I just called you on to be the first one. Number three, it was very clear that you were a little nervous, the energy, but also very adventurous for saying yes. You definitely could have said, can someone else go, right? Like, all those things. But in this game, you either are open and vulnerable, or you're leaning into why it's okay not to be open and vulnerable. But if we're gonna stay in a space of safety, well then we expect you to give it all, right? And the beauty of being in a room full of strangers is that one word actually doesn't suffice because we don't know you. So outlier, now when you said the word outlier, so am I, girl. So am I. So I'm always looking for the outliers in the room because I have to stand near you because we are the ones that are actually gonna save the world. The outliers are gonna be the ones that save the world when this whole thing blows up, okay? But I was looking for you to expand. In what area are you an outlier? You know? What makes you an outlier? How do you know? You know, so I had so many more questions. So it's a one-word answer, yes, which was really, that's the only reason why I gave you a one, is just because it was a one-word answer. I think if you had expanded anything beyond that, it would have been exactly what you had shared. Any little bit beyond that, I would have talked it up to, well, yes, of course, like, this is nerve-wracking. You guys are so much more, I found the whole weekend, people are so much more timid than I would have thought, right? I would have thought that everyone here would have been like those people who are calling everybody out, and go ahead.
So as a counselor, I'm just throwing this in, and I hate saying it that way, we are trained to read beyond the one word. And so I think that might be, so of course for the lady who sat beside you, Kate, you were in her wedding, so yeah, she's gonna see that. But as a counselor, we're trained that 80% is what you're looking for, which is the body language. You're looking for the message sometimes beyond the message that's within their body language, because there's like the gallows laugh, where somebody comes in, they're telling you their child died, but they're cracking up like it's a joke. So there's this balance between what somebody's saying and what they're showing. So for me, I can only speak for me, I can't speak for the other counselors. For me, body language, I'm looking at that a lot because primarily my clientele is quiet. They're not sharing, they're high-level service members who are trained not to talk. Yeah. So I'm trying to read the body language all day. So for me, getting all this body language and this influence, this fluctuation in her voice and turn red, that means a lot for me, that one word is very vulnerable for her.
I really agree with you. I was actually sitting over here and I have similar lens. A lot of my clients have PTSD, PTSD, trauma, and they don't feel safe to share more words or don't even know how to put the words on that, but to feel the energy of the one word they say and then really assessing for meaning underneath the word. And in the public space that we are in, not knowing each other and having the vulnerability to say, I feel like an outsider right now, is incredibly vulnerable because it calls out the insecurity in that moment that you're feeling. And so that's, yeah.
Sorry,
no, go ahead.
I agree with both of you, and as a couples therapist, I'm also thinking about when I'm in my office with folks, I'm trying to get them to be open and vulnerable with their partner who, 99% of the time isn't a mental health professional, right? And so then it's I might pick up on a lot of that, right? Underlying message and all the things because I have the training, but if their partner is missing it, it doesn't matter, right? I could pick up on all of that I want, but it's not really gonna mean anything unless they're able to send that message to their partner. And that's a lot of hard work.
I think to add, I would have given it 3 because she could have said counselor. That would be the one, I feel like. That would just be straight up nope, I'm not opening at all. But she did give the one word of something you probably wouldn't expect from her, and with the body language that was brought into that, there was some more vulnerability. Now, if she had expanded on what that meant, then it would be 4, maybe 5, but that's why I think more than 3 as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say the only reason I gave it 3.5 is because, but the answer was very, who am I in this very moment here now? I feel like if we were in a room full of people you knew really super well, you would have gone into like who you are in this like moment in time as opposed to just in this space. And your answer was just who you are in this space, and that's why I gave it 3.5. So it wasn't like the lack of wordiness or like loquaciousness of the answer, it was more just like I knew you would go deeper into who you are in all spaces if it were like a more intimate group. Okay. Like how what is
We're also pretty, as counselors, we're pretty goal-oriented people, so I would want to hear from you about this, the process of the other person giving an evaluation. What is the goal of that? Like, so that then, like, that helps me to understand, like, especially if you're thinking about different dyads using this, like, what, you know, is it a couple that's, and what is the goal, you know, for hearing that openness or transparency versus like intermingle of strangers, like, so you can, you know,
Sure.
help.
Yeah, absolutely. Number one, what we just did here is exactly the reason for the rating system. It's not a good, bad, oh my God, you only got a 1. You're done, right? It's not. It's, well, why did you give a 1? Well, from my point of view, which I live a very different life than you, right? From my point of view, I just wanted to know more. We're total strangers, right? So the thing is that when you are communicating with a stranger, you do have to kind of say more because you're starting from 1. You have to say your name. Sometimes you then have to say where you're from. And even as I did in the beginning, I try to give you guys context to anything I do say. That way, even if you, whether you agree or disagree, you at least understand the context from which I'm sharing. Do you understand what I'm saying there? Right? Whereas the more you know someone, you actually can say less because they already lived in with you, right? Especially when you're talking about, and I have couples that I work with where I am working with a couple, and I mean, I have triads, I have all kinds of things, right? And like sometimes they're talking and they're rating, and I do kind of feel left out because they're talking about things that are high level, they're over my head, but they live together so that they know, right? So the sentences are shorter, but they're evaluating each other based off of what they know to be true, which is why it's so interesting that you guys have a relationship. Of course, you could rate her higher with one-word answer because you understand from the context of that.
And I can also be very wrong. She could have been saying that answer.
Well, it's all, again, but it can't be wrong because it's just how I feel. It's my interpretation. And then let's say as a client, let's say a vulnerable client, you know, I talk about the emotional suspicious, the mute, right? Let's say you come back to me and you're like, well, that's me. You gave me a 1 and I tried. I'm just sharing with you the bridge of communication. Yes, this is what you said, and this is what I received. Do you feel comfortable going in and just sharing a little bit more? I understand this can be tough. I understand that you were, you thrived in a structure where keeping it to yourself really worked out, but you're also here, which means that you are in consideration of something new. You know what I mean? So it's really just that. What we're talking about is not making considerations to make them comfortable. It's making considerations so that I'm getting the information and you actually, you meaning the client does feel the support and the confidence from it when you do those little nudgings. And I remind people, like, voting a 1 just means that there's consideration. It literally just means that you can go back and answer anything more, right? So it's not like, okay, the round's over. It's, okay, I said a 1. You don't agree with me because there's obviously something else there that you wanted to share. Maybe I didn't receive it. Maybe that's my fault. Maybe my saying a 1 actually isn't about your communication of what you put out. It's my inability to receive what's coming in. Again, I mentioned to you guys earlier, I'm hard-headed. You know what I mean?
I really kind of see it like the rating system kind of like sounds like the like resonant understanding of meaning that was received by the person listening.
Subjective.
Yeah.
Very subjective.
Yeah. So, yeah. And I get like it's what I took away from what you said in a way that makes me feel like I understand you. And
Yeah, I was gonna say, I would, if I were to use this in a therapeutic context, I would reword it as, let's rate the person on how, in Gestalt therapy, we talk about like contact with each other, which is like how much you feel the other's presence impacting you, essentially, to put like very, very simply. But I would say like, how connected did you feel with this person when you heard that answer?
Oh, very good. Yeah.
And to piggyback back off of that, I would say in a therapeutic context, rate how you experienced the level of vulnerability of that person, because that's owning that it's a subjective experience, and it's giving a lot more context from the outset of what a rating even means, which is the part I was unclear about, but, yeah.
And it shares ownership of.
What's being shared?
Yeah, well, of the level of vulnerability, like it's not just on like what you did or didn't, or what I'm open to or not, like it's a shared.
Rather than
Oh,
being
yeah.
discussion.
Yes,
Yeah.
sorry, I talked over somebody.
I would want to know why she said outlier. Was it just what happened just now? Did she feel like an outlier because she felt she was the only one that didn't understand the rating system?
See, you were getting it. Here's why. Whatever the specific client needs, obviously you don't know until you're in with that specific client. There have been a lot of considerations I've had to make that I would have never in my wildest dream of the 41 years I've been on this planet that I would need to make for adult people. It's blown my mind, right? But I'm not using the context of any other human being except the one that's sitting right here, right? And the assumption is that in this space of spending 3 days together and knowing that we have the commonalities of counseling, that maybe there's a space where I can expect more, and that it can be okay for me to expect more from you, right? No one client fits all of everything else, but in this context, so remind me your name again, I'm sorry, Kate, then for me it is a one, not a judgment of a one, but exactly what you said, it's because I have more questions. I have so many more questions that, right, it's a rating of 1 through 5. 1 meaning it is a one-word answer. Is a one-word answer wrong? Absolutely not. There are a lot of things that can be summed up with one-word answers. No. It's a perfect one-word answer that sums everything up. But do I have other questions after you said that no? Yes. So it's not a judgment on you. It's actually a realization that now I have curiosity at hand. So how can it be a fully formed, because remember, yes, we're all talking right now about vulnerability, but you missed the other part that we're rating on, openness. So openness and vulnerability. And a part of openness is the satisfaction of the answer, right? And of course, that can be interpreted a lot of different ways, and of course, you have to lead into the sensitivities of your patient and your clients and all those kinds of things, of course. But just playing it in this instance, I had those questions. The first 3 questions, and I actually think that you hit on it too. I was like, oh, outlier here or in general? Outlier because you didn't quite understand the game and you thought everyone else did. Like, I had so many of those questions that then it becomes, okay, then I have to rate a 1. And then what we do to continue on is I'll say, listen, but I would love for you to speak, more on that, right? But I do have to let you know from your answer where I am. And from where I am at a 1, which is no judgment on you. It could be a judgment on my ears. It could be the judgment on the fact that I didn't have coffee today. If we're lovers, it could be the judgment on, I don't fuck with you today. So everything you say, I'm just not trying to hear, right? So it really is all about how I'm perceiving it. It actually has nothing to do with how perfectly you said it. So I want to make sure that that's very clear. And you exactly said it correct. Go ahead.
People, human beings, when we hear that they're rated as a person, not the response.
Only people who sit in a space of danger. Which is why I said in the beginning.
Most people sit when they're a stranger. And we're trying to engage in formulation. So it can put, I'm just saying, it can push back. More clarity.
Sure.
And more safety than before. Like, would you be willing to rate yourself? It gives the power away for that person to say that. You just say, rate yourself, 1 to 5, this is honest. I'm already in a box, I'm already in this area. And then to feel, we as humans here, a number associated with whatever we do, walk, talk, present, whatever, we take that person. We're not looking at the fact that we're being rated on a response for openness or vulnerability. Over here is only 1.
Yeah. I never thought so.
Well, I was just gonna say, it almost sounds like that, what, again, like how we as counselors can like kind of sit across from someone, is kind of like doing that natural evaluation piece that like you're bringing in as like a specific tool for like 2 people who don't have training as like, counselors to kind of get more of that messaging from each other. And so like the evaluation piece is to kind of help them understand what's underneath just what comes out of someone's mouth, which is, we all know, like a huge piece when there's a parent and a child, that miscommunication that happens, or a partner and partner, like how are they missing communication? And so we do that naturally as counselors. We do that evaluation piece by saying, tell me more. Like, I want to know more about what that means, for you. But usually, like, with a parent and a child, they're not able to do that. And so then the evaluation helps maybe get there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think there's a couple of things that are really important to note. And listen, I have to overstate it even with my own clients. You are safe, and I am not your enemy. Those are two things that I feel like I repeat over and over again. And the ones that I repeat it to the most are my high-functioning clients, usually the ones who work in finance. Okay? They are the ones. The thing is that I'm not going to, and again, I'm a coach, very different from counselors, okay? So you have to be able to implement it the way you know it works best for your clientele and your individuals who maybe are really in a space of danger. And if they are in a space of danger, and the only danger filled clients I deal with are ones who are like, emotionally immature or like, dealing with romantic issues where, the dangers in the fact that they think that women are trying to steal their money or, whatever these types of things are. Not any actual mortal danger. But two things. One, I am not your enemy. I am just here to be a reflective mirror. You said you're a strong communicator, but when we play, I'm only receiving it as a one. This is not meant to say you're not a strong communicator. This is just meant to say that as you are giving it to me, and the goal is to be a stronger communicator. That is the goal. I'm just saying that this is where I'm receiving it now. A couple of things. Well, maybe, and I've gotten this from clients, I'm gonna go through things that I get. Well, that wasn't a good question. Okay, then let's go another question. I get a lot, that was a hard one. Well, the question is asking you about yourself, and that is fair if it's hard. Okay, then let's do something else. I'll even say, hey, you're gonna pull a question and ask me. Because I actually find that when you have the client bring you, then it goes to show two things. One, I'm not perfect. I'm not perfect. And also, you are not judged based on the number. People who are in danger feel judged. People who are in safety feel like they're understanding how the room is understanding them. And then they take the opportunity, right? They take the consideration of, oh, maybe I could get some more.
A couple different thoughts.
Sure.
If you don't mind me sharing multiple. One is, so I work almost exclusively with complex trauma. I work with other things as well, but the theme across all my clients is complex trauma. And there's more to saying that you're safe for the body to feel safe, and it has to be a gradual experience. And when I say complex trauma, I mean like my stepfather sexually assaulted me for the first 10 years of my life. So this is not something where like I can sit in front of somebody and say, you're safe, and they believe me. And they even if they believe me, they don't believe me. And so the reason I was saying I would go more into that, like how I felt a 3 out of 5 connected to you when you answered that would feel very different, would feel more approachable for her. Because I get the directness of it, and that level of directness can feel like judgment to the body and make you feel more safe, unsafe, and more shut down. And so if I'm including more so like the connection between us, and I say, hey, I didn't feel very connected to you, that would still bring some inquiry from her, like, oh, why? Why? Because I felt like I was being really vulnerable, and I can still share that with her, but it's more approachable and less of a judgment or me trying to tell her what her state of being was when she answered it, if that makes sense to me, which also doesn't feel safe in the body.
Are you done?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a very similar thought, and as therapists, they say, oh, it seems like it might be hard for you to share right now, or I'm not really feeling connected to you right now, but the importance of what he shared, and also what Kristen just said, in at least in how I practice, is avoiding value-based evaluation. And that every single response is reflective of a purpose, it's serving a purpose. And so it's like, do you feel comfortable exploring what might be behind this? Or, you know, like, do you feel connected right now? And if they are saying, no, I don't, or yes, I am, then looking at it in contributing factors. But just to think about the extent that I have shared, especially with certain clients, that no feeling is good or bad, would be so risky to introduce numbers. And those who are seeking external validation.
Especially because a 5 for somebody who is sitting in trauma looks very different from a 5 for somebody who isn't. So 5, like, I'm being as open and vulnerable as I possibly can in this moment as my body will allow. Maybe somebody else is 2. And
That
so
could be
I think,
detrimental.
yeah, it could be detrimental to name their openness and vulnerability as opposed to name them. I'm so appreciative of how open and vulnerable you're being right now, and I'm still not feeling super connected to you. Can we talk about the unsafety that's here? Can we talk about what the divide, like what's happening here?
Versus fix this, improve this communication in the moment.
Yeah, and this is in a trauma context versus like just using it as a game.
Exactly.
That's how I would shift the language to
In the therapeutic
space.
I also think that, and maybe this is something that I should have talked about in the beginning, but because trauma is so interesting, right? Because it really just leans into, well, number one, what is the trauma? But first and foremost, this is a communication tool. So it's implied that you're wanting to get better with the communicative part of it. So if we're still dealing with the understanding of what's happening to me, right? That's the self-exploration part. Maybe this game is not there. Like maybe you're not ready for this game yet.
That makes sense.
This is for people who are, that's the thing about intimacy, right? This is the part of you that actually wants to be ripped all the way open, not the part of you that wants a reason to stay closed up, right? This is hey, well, you said you wanted to communicate better. This actually isn't judgment, and in fact, it would be a shame, and I'm not talking about everyone, I'm talking about people who are looking to better communicate, looking to see if they are strong communicators. And then, of course, the questions that you have to ask in the beginning, how direct can I be with you? How often do you feel judged? How often do you walk around the world feeling like you're more endangered than safe? I have clients also who will say to me, especially my male clients, like, oh yeah, I'm fine, everyone's fine, right? Except when you answer these very basic questions, and let me pull another level 1 question, right? Since we've only just gone through 2 so far. Name a romantic song you love and why it resonates with you, right? Well, a couple things there. Why are you in my business? I had someone ask me that one. I'm not coming to you for my romantic life. Why are you asking me that? Well, that's just the question on the card. Why don't you feel comfortable answering? Well, I don't want to talk about that. Okay, well, let's go to a different question. But what I'm gathering is that you want a reason to not communicate. And now you want me to agree that I somehow crossed a line, even though you're paying me X amount of dollars to be here. And now you're telling me, but okay, let's pull another question. What do we have most in common? Nothing. On this call for 15 minutes and you haven't said anything. Or we're both on a call together. We're both not saying anything together. We both have 2 lungs. We're both earth mates in the year 2026. But okay, we have nothing in common. Let's do another one. Are you healed from your deepest heartbreak? Well, that's personal. Okay, well, right, so like now, so you're understanding this is not for people who are seeking something else. This is very specific to the people who are wanting to understand what type of communicator I am and how is my life being dictated for the positive or the negative, however I'm experiencing it, because of the way I'm communicating, presenting myself, offering. I deal with a lot of people who call themselves vulnerable, but they're not, they're posers. Here's my script and here's the story I'm gonna give you. Everyone who likes me believes the script and believes the story. And now here I am coming to intervene. Okay, well your script and your story is beautiful, but it's not authentic to who you are. And what would happen to your self-esteem and your value if the script was gone and you just told the truth without paying attention to who's gonna like you and who's not? Because in fact, who really has the space and the jurisdiction to judge you? So I think that that's a great model, and maybe that's something I should have said in the beginning, right? Like intimacy. This is the intimacy part. Intimacy. I'm just telling you what I'm experiencing. And far be it for me to be the judge of anyone, okay? I can go down my list of crap I've done. Okay, I told you I was a party girl with a press pass. I can judge no one, okay? All right, so I think like that, right? But like, let's say again, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just like, especially with those like 3 back to back and kind of like hearing like where you could get some of that pushback from people, I was just thinking that this could be like a really interesting therapeutic tool to use with clients who you already have like really good, safe rapport with, who don't have other people in their life that they feel comfortable to communicate, to almost like model that it can be safe, because you are like, as their therapist, maybe the safest person they know. And it is maybe the only safe space that they do feel even like they could get to a place of answering a question like this, because so often we do have that role of like repatterning what that communication or that safety can feel like for people who live in spaces of constantly feeling unsafe. And so to like use this as like the training wheels of like, hey, like let's maybe just experiment doing this with us. This is not maybe something you take out into the world right now, but like to start to build what it would be like to even open up to me a little bit in this space, like like having that solid rapport and experience with a client already who may just be interested in like, if you're like almost in that holding pattern with that client where you're like, we've been seeing each other for a while, I feel like we're just kind of like, we're still just right here. And like, what would it be like to take that extra half a step forward? And like, yeah, so I was just thinking that this would be an interesting tool to use in that way.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, like, obviously we're a room full of practitioners, and so we're coming at it from that lens, but who is this game for? It's for the people walking by on the street, and so they're not gonna have the same clinical perspectives that we are, and so how is this tool gonna be approachable and accessible to them? And I like your rating scale of like, I think you're meaning it as less of a judgment and more of a tool for offering feedback and starting the communication. And I think as Americans, we're so attached to our numbers and like, my GPA and my stunts that I got in my weight and so like that it is a number system in and of itself can feel threatening. But if it were rated or labeled in a way of like, I'm sensing some hesitance, or say more, or I'm kind of smelling what you're stepping in, or say less. Like descriptors more than numbers as a way to give that feedback, maybe a little bit less threatening for some folks.
Yeah.
Not to like play the game.
No, by no means. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Sorry?
I don't know how I should say this. In a cultural aspect, being direct like that in our culture is respected. Just right off the gate, like, what is it? Tell me, like, just cut through it. That can be okay. The other thing too is that we use things that are rating tools. We use things where we tell them to rate themselves on a scale of 1 to whatever. Also too, and just going back to her introduction, is that this is a tool. This is a tool to use to open up. I think it's also good for people, and I can only speak from my population where I serve, is they come from an environment where they are rating, they think they're open, they think that they're vulnerable, and now I'm retired, and my family says I'm not connected. I'm talking to them, but they say I don't love them, or I'm saying this to them, and they keep telling me they're perceiving this, that, and the third. So with some clients, not all, being direct like that is okay. From a cultural standpoint, since this is part of some of the topic, just cutting through it is okay. Honestly, some of people I've worked with before when I worked in rural areas, talking on this level like this is very condescending. It just, so I think you have to tailor, and that's what you're asking. You're asking for us to tailor it. I can see this in a lot of different ways. Brene Brown has something not like this, because yours is very direct. That's what I liked about it. It's just like, this is what you're gonna get. But we can talk about it in a safe place. The other thing too is the world is judging us. So how am I gonna help a person to operate in the world? Yes, I'm saying it just so because I feel safe in here just to say it, but I'm not talking like that and thing. But the world is judging people. So how do we not help them with hearing that feedback or hearing it from a difficult person? I have a lot of young people who are living in a parent's home and gone into the workforce, and they can't keep a job because they're talking to somebody who's 50 or 40, and that generation talks like this, and they can't accept that and absorb that. So, like, there's all these different nuances I think that your game or just what we can build upon, but there is a space where this is needed. And how do we as clinicians do it in a safe, healthy way for them? But there's also these other cultural aspects that I think might come across that I'm hearing, because as I'm listening to y'all, sometimes it's like, oh, it's not that bad. Personally, listening to it from two lenses. As a clinician, I wouldn't say it like that, but if I was at home playing it, I'd be like, oh, that's not that bad. Yeah. So there's just all these things. I think honestly, I think it's a good tool. I like the questions because they're more in depth. They're actually, I have to say, better questions than I've probably asked, just listening to some of the things that you've asked. So it opens up that deeper communication.
You just hit on it. I mean, listen, I'm a direct person for multiple reasons. Number one, yes, for sure, number one, I'm from the Northeast. You know what I mean? Like, we're usually critiquing you before we smile. One of the things I've noticed being around here is I'm a very friendly person, I just am. I think to God be the glory, and if we're all made in His likeness, then you have to be good with people, even though we're weird. You just gotta be good with everybody, right? And one of the things that I loved about Asheville being here is everyone smiles. Everyone takes a moment when you're walking by them to look up from their phone, make direct eye contact, and smile. It's something that I do, but I'm from Philadelphia. Nobody else does it. So I'm the only person in Philadelphia smiling at strangers, I can assure you, right? But my environment does not dictate who I am. I dictate who I am, right? And then when there are things about who I am that I want to change, I'm looking for direct critiques. There's nothing that anyone can say in this room, and most of you are way more educated than me scholastically, but there's nothing that anyone can say that can make me feel judged. Why? Because I feel like the ownership of judgment is something that's already, you have to accept that, right? I genuinely believe that's a self-esteem issue, and I feel like that's you have to sort of, I don't know how to do that because I grew up in a very high self-esteem place, a high confident place. So even when I was in school as a child, I remember, I wasn't planning on sharing the story, but I will share the story, right? Sex was taught in middle school, I think? Middle school. And it was taught to me by my 50-year-old science teacher, whom I didn't know what gay was, but I knew Ibrahim was gay. And that's all I can tell you, right? And at this point, it's like a 13-year-old's mind, right? And so as he's sharing with us about sexual interests, whatever he could share in the late 90s, I remember thinking, yeah, but it's probably going to be different for me. Why? Because he's a middle-aged man who I think is gay. These are three factors that lets me believe that your experience of sex is going to be different from my experience of sex, even though I've never had sex, I don't know what sex is, blah, 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 right? I have an opt-out. So while he's telling you what good touch and bad touch is, I'm like, well, how do you know what's good and bad for me? I can't feel the judgment of what you're deeming as good and bad because we don't live the same life, I'm assuming, right? And so because of that, yeah, I don't have a connection to judgment, so I think that's part of correction. Also, I was in news. You know what I mean? That's direct communication, direct information given. This isn't about judgment, this is about you being educated. If we're worried about judgment, then that's us plugging into your feelings, and we can talk about that. The feeling aspect is that. How much of your feelings is actually making you less of a strong communicator? Right? I talk about that with my clients all the time. You're so worried about judgment that you're actually not sharing anything. So now I'm actually judging you more. I'm judging you as a quiet person that has nothing to say. How boring. You know what I mean? So I think it always does, it definitely comes from, of course, tailoring the game to the needs of the client, but absolutely making sure that they understand and you understand this is a communication tool for dual purposes. One, to see how much you can emote, and for you to understand what the world is getting as you do that. With my female clients, especially my really tough ones, especially my African American, my Black girls who like want to come in and they want to stunt, they want to be that girl, they want to be the lashes and the butt and the breast and the hair and all that. I'm like, yeah, but you mostly just see me. I'm a pretty mean girl. You know, with a hard shell. Like, you're pretty, but outside of your shoes, I don't really want to know you, right? And letting them know you can be fully soft in a supermodel. You know what I mean? You can be whatever you want, but let's be clear about what people see. And that's no judgment. That's just how people see it. You know, so I think that's very important. So when we're talking about that, and you also hit on something that's very important. Yes, the game is meant to play at home, right? Because 99% of your clients are not going to be technicians. They're not going to be, right, people who understand the language you have. That rating of 1 to 5 works because, absolutely, right, when you have multiple choice on your test, or when you have, right, at the end of the day, you need a scale. So maybe if you know you have someone who's going to be triggered by numbers, then use letters. If you feel like they're going to be triggered by letters, then absolutely use that whole, okay, yeah, how do you,
the phrases.
Absolutely, the phrases. I think the, hey, can you give more, I think is fantastic, because even in that, and you can say in the game, hey, if I'm asking the question, can I give you more, or can you give me more, then that's the implication that maybe, the consideration is that you're not the strongest communicator that you thought you were, okay?
And I like the numbers for like a more personal context.
Yeah.
I was just thinking more in like, in my own, like specifically with the clientele that I work with, and because I also value directness a lot, and the culture of the clientele that I work with. Especially like, you know, in Appalachia, it's not, you know, there's a certain way of communicating. You kind of have to work with that as you, and the safety and all the things. So I was thinking of it more in the therapy. If I'm with friends and she's like, Kristen, you're at 2, I'd be like,
but you have to remember, your client is going to be with friends after your 1 hour. That's how I'm seeing it. You play it with your client in the session, and now your client can take that therapy that you guys had and recreate it in their own personal life. I think we have to remember that, right? Like for me, I see clients usually between 3 and 6 times. That's it. So if I'm seeing you once a week, I think most intensely twice a week. Okay, what's 2 hours of exercise gonna do for you? A week. Say that you went to the gym. That's all you can do with 2 hours of exercise a day, right? But if I'm giving you an exercise that you can do at home, right? Now it's, okay, well, my therapist rated me a 2. That bothers me. I think they're judging me. My family really understands me. I'm gonna take that same question home, and I'm gonna ask the people who are not educated, but who know me, to now rate me. Same question, same rating system. Now, okay, well, now I have my therapist, my counselor, and 6 other people all rating me a 2. Okay. What do I want to do with that, right? And then the other reason why the rating system is, I mean, it really is a very elementary rating system, right? Is because we want to make it approachable for everyone. And I know you said that you are a relationship counselor, correct? So let's talk about that, right? It's about, now I'm playing the game in session as a referee, okay? So you are my lover, right? You are, what's your name again? Andrew. So Andrew is our counselor, right? The fact is that regardless of what Andrew thinks or says in our 55 minutes together, 50 minutes, 45, whatever you charge, right? We still have to figure out what this means in our home, right? So let's talk about level 2 really quickly, just because I feel like we did a lot of that one-on-one. Unless anyone had any other questions about this. Okay. So let's go into what it looks like for partners. Wait, tell me this. Oh gosh, we didn't get a chance to play. Okay. So we'll talk about for partners, right? So we are together, and we are having a communication issue. Everything I say to her, she doesn't hear me. And every time she talks to me, I feel like she's nagging. I feel like she doesn't see anything I do right, everything I do is wrong, I don't know what the issue is, okay? So then we say, okay, well then let's go into a play. I want to see how you guys communicate with each other, all right? And so let's say in this case, we'll pull a level 2. Guys, we didn't even get to the touch part of it. This was so interesting. So let's say we'll have you pull a level 2 question. What does it say?
What does a healthy relationship look and feel like for you?
Great. So let's say, right, there's the two of us. So you'll say, okay, who wants to start? Who wants to answer? One of us will answer, and then the other will rate. And you are monitoring the whole time. So let's say you answered, right? And you don't necessarily have to answer it for our relationship. Overall, what does a healthy relationship look and feel like to you? Do you feel comfortable answering that? Okay.
A healthy relationship looks harmonious and feels like a safe place to show up with the fullness of my humanity, even when I'm around the edges. I know that I am held in that, and that it's okay not to be perfect all the time, but I will still be seen and valued for the person that I am.
No, you don't, Andrew. You know you get that, right? Where it's like, no, that's not what she said when we were at home, right? And so then as a referee, you go, but that's not what we're talking about. We are rating openness and vulnerability. Not, do you agree? Or is she showing off? Or is she just trying to impress you, be teachers? It's none of that. Openness and vulnerability, right? So now I am stuck in the, okay, fine. Openness and vulnerability, 5. But I'm not seeing that. But 5 because of the answer, but I'm not seeing it, right? So now you have a couple of things that you get to see as the counselor. One, you get to see that the discord isn't in answering the question, it's in my ability to receive and believe what's being said to me, right? I'm already ready to fight. You know what I mean? So now you can talk about that, right? You are observing. And then on the reverse, let's say there's another question asked, right? So now I'm supposed to, what is the first thought that comes, what's the first thought when it comes to our energy? Now let's say I answer. Well, you were one of the first people that walked into the room, and we talked a lot. Not only is she a counselor, but she's also a massage therapist. So she essentially does what I do, the talking and the touching, right? So I know we have a lot in common, and most of it is that we are the touchy-feely girls. You know, we understand that communication style a lot. So I answer, and you rate me, and let's say you rate me a 1. I said all that. Well, if I said that much, and she rates me a 1, then maybe she's not rating me on my words, she's rating on how she feels about me. That's something that you can pick up. And then redirect. Because then what we're doing, right, the people who are judging you are actually people who love you. The people who care about you and they want you to do what they want you to do, right? There's no higher, please interrupt me if I'm wrong, but there's no higher feeling of judgment than from your partner, right? And so now it's about, okay, well, if the judgment's gonna be present, is it being evaluated accordingly? Am I evaluating you on your openness and vulnerability, or how I feel about you in this moment? My expectation of you in this moment, right? Whatever that is, you will be able to see it, and then you can say, okay, well now I actually see what the communication issue is. It's that you're not paying attention to what's being said, you're paying attention to how it's making you feel. Or if you think it's valid, or if you think it's real. And these are not ways to communicate. Does that make sense for everyone? I want to make sure. Okay? So it allows for you to referee, and then also you can give your input. Hey, this was a really well-articulated answer, even from the outside of your relationship. I can see what was valid in that. Okay, well, even being outside of your relationship, I can tell that actually wasn't fruitful or helpful whatsoever, right? So now you're helping people to understand, is this an argument that needs to happen, or are you just argumentative? Right? And if you are just being argumentative, then what's the problem? Because it's definitely not one of these questions, right? And obviously, and I tell this to my clients all the time, mostly to the wives, because wives are very spoiled. That comes from being a single woman. If you have your partner in counseling, you already are doing the good work, right? You both showed up. So now there are no bad guys because you're here, right? So then just reminding them of that, even when it hurts in counseling, but you came. There's still effort, right? Go back to the gym. Listen, sometimes I go to the gym and I just walk around. I walk around, I do the Stairmaster for like 3 minutes, and I'm like, listen, I came. Because that's all I have for that day. But I'm proud that I came. It's still better than a day I didn't go, right? And so I always try to use that as something to be said. But you now get a look professionally into the way they communicate. And then they get a take home that they can now use to be able to pay more attention. Okay, I want to be good to my partner. I love Gabby, I want her to be happy. Am I judging her based off of the lens that I've created for her? or am I judging her based off of what she's actually giving me? How open she's actually being, how vulnerable she's actually being. So then that's the marker there. Now, whether you're doing it with a couple, throuple, whatever the consideration is, even in family therapy, it's the exact same way with children and adults, right? Being able to watch a child and a parent play gets to show you how communicative the child feels to articulate themselves to the adult. Also, it's really interesting, and I've done this, watch children, or watch adults have to answer to children, and watch how the language changes. And then is the language a little too elementary for that child because the child is smarter than that? We really pretend like, I say this a lot with parents, every parent thinks that their child is the smartest child in the world until there's something they don't want to talk about with that child. Then all of a sudden like, oh, that's beyond them. They're way too young for that, right? But like, is that helpful? Is it helpful to sweep everything under the rug? Or are they sensing that they're being gaslit and now there is no trust because of that, right? So that's all stuff that you can pick up with, yes, through the game of the play, but also just as a client. And maybe it isn't about rating the client because you want them to know where you think that they are, but it's about the internal rating of, I'm asking you these few questions, and now I know before we get to the harder stuff, the trauma-based stuff, the things that actually are going to be the things that change your life, I'm just trying to get an idea of how safe you actually are. Because most people might say, yes, I'm safe. But a couple of questions asked will let you know how open they actually are, which will dictate how safe they actually feel. 2 minutes. Okay, well with 2 minutes, I just want to make sure I see if anyone has any questions. I wanted us to play, and I wanted us to get to the touch part, so I guess I'll just really quickly say that part of it at least, which is the reason why the rating system was 1 through 5 is because that 1 through 5, once you get past this is what we did for 90 minutes, do the debating of the rating. Well, why did you rate me this? I do feel judged. Why'd you give me a 1? I paid you $200 an hour. I want you to rate me a 5. How do I get to a 5? That's fine, and that's all of it, and I'm happy to do that. But when you are to a place, and especially with your clients who do share physical space, you can say, okay, well that 1 through 5 now converts to a touch, which is what this card here does, right? It's our emotional conversion card. So this 1 here means caress. It's, listen, 1 was a 1-word answer, right? Well, you barely gave. You did the best you could, but it was barely, right? So you can barely touch, that's caress. Down to 5, improvise. You answered so well, I don't have a follow-up question. Therefore, you are entitled to touch however you think is most appropriate creatively for our relationship and the environment in which we're playing. Obviously, when it comes to the touch part, it has to be appropriate. We all know that, right? So, obviously within context. So, now that I've rated you, let's say a 1, right? We rated Kate a 1 earlier, caress. Then what we would do is, and Kate, if you still have your card, at the bottom of her level 1 card, there are 4 body parts. The body parts are forehead, cheek, hands, feet. You'll see that right here at the bottom of this card too, outlined in red. So how we would play, even in this instance, of a room full of strangers during cold and flu season, okay, is what we would do then is we would take that rating of 1, which is caress, and after we've gone back in and said, hey, Kate, did you want to answer any more creatively? Did you want to offer anything more verbally? And she said, no, let's say, no, I'm good, I don't want to. Okay, well then the question becomes, is there any way that you feel comfortable caressing any one of these 4 body parts, forehead, cheek, hands, feet, on anyone here we're playing with, right? And let's say you say no. Which is fine, right? Because even the word caress just feels, okay, we're gonna take a bubble bath next, so what are we doing here, right? But what we would do is here, we go, okay, well then let's go back to verbally. Do you want to answer more succinctly? Because the goal here is to be such a strong communicator that you get to 5. Which is improvise. Why is it important? Because improvisation is the only way in which you can be empowered to touch however you deem to be most appropriate for the relationship of the people or person you're playing with. So how does that work, right? Well, if I can improvise, if I give you guys an answer, right? Let's say I answered the level 1 question. Which is the quickest path to your heart, acts of service, affection, communication, or emotional connection? Let's say I answered you guys, I'll give you a 5, right? Perfect answer. Well, improvise. Okay, great. I can touch however I think is most appropriate to all 30 of you in the room. My body parts are forehead, cheek, hands, feet. All the body parts are the same in level 1. I would feel comfortable handshaking every single person in this room. I would feel comfortable, actually I feel more comfortable fist bumping everybody in this room. I have seen thumb wrestling, right? So it's not about where am I in danger. It's about what can I offer through safety, right? And so when you're thinking about it from that point of view, it's yes, the verbal connection. How much can I give that you do want to read me? Hi. And then what can I offer you with physical energy that lets you also see how open and vulnerable I can be, while also sharing that safety with you and letting you know I am not of danger to you and you are not that of me, but in fact, we are of kindred spirits being in one space. Does that make sense? Just to be able, and just as we close out, I'm gonna just go ahead and play the last 2 minutes of this, or the last 1 minute of this, because I want you to see what this relationship looked like at the end, and then I'll tell you what the relationship was.
You're laid back, you're really chill, but at the same time, not being able to assert yourself. Like you have this nice balance between assertiveness and you are tough.
Rate the 3.
That's nibble where?
3 is nibble.
Lips, upper back, knees, and outer thigh.
Knees, my knees are out. No, yeah.
I'm not gonna say
I'm there. Hypothetically, if we were doing it's actually being outer thigh. There. Outer thigh. Oh, there's levels to this.
So, okay, right? So what happened there was they chose to play level 3. They just wanted to deep dive straight into it. He rated her a 3, right? Which is nibble, a little uncomfortable. And so what she did was she said, oh, okay, well that's cute, but no thank you, right? Which is what you were supposed to do, be able to opt out of anything you don't feel comfortable with. And to answer someone, 2 of you were right. The relationship between these two is they are friends. He's interested in her romantically. As we saw, she's clearly not interested in him. Okay? But as you saw throughout the play, there was no rejection there. There was only the discomfort that the professionals would see because we read the body language, right? The first thing I saw was her go like this. You know what I mean? And like she kept pushing her body back further and further. But he received the information on the back end without feeling rejected, without feeling judged, and without feeling like he can't continue a friendship. And so that's really what the game does, is hopefully you can get to a place where you're showing that even in rejection doesn't have to feel bad, it's just clarity of self. Okay? Thank you all so much for the time. We didn't get to like the therapist part with the touching, but I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, and thank you for your thoughts.
The closing word is trust. Opening is consent.
Very good words.
So, first one consent, second one trust.
As you guys are leaving, I'm just going to play this video of me with a psychotherapist, just doing the touch part, all 4 levels.
We always need more folks to do it. A lot of folks are understandably, a lot of folks are like, that's too scary for me, or like, that's not my wheelhouse.
Pretty much everyone in the cohort, I'm like the only one.
You know, I get it, it's not perfect, but it's hard, it's intimidating.
Thank you so much. Hard, I have some test questions on there for you.
Yeah.
What was your name?
Andrew.
Brandon.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Try.
Yeah. Oh no, it was awesome. Oh yes, yeah. How'd you like it?
It's good.
Yeah.
I learned a lot.
Did you see the use of it? Or, okay. Very good, very good, very good. Yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I do cash out. Okay, cash out or I'll give you one of these. There's a test question, 1 in each level.
Yeah.
So if you might want to just see if it works for your clients or something like that. And I appreciate what you said about the directness. I'm like, I don't know how we get to any place without directness. People spend all this money, don't you have direct?
Is this your bag? It's a bag here.
Sorry?
Can you do the bag?
Oh, that's not my bag.
Okay, that's okay.
Yeah, that was just sitting there. I am selling the games. They're $50. Okay. And I can sell to you however I
I can take a card or cash app. You gotta get out. Yeah, come on, let's
Yeah,
I'm a checker in her, that is
Let
me.
me
Get it out. All right, down way.
Oh, hi.
That one got so much faster than I thought.
It does, it really, really does.
Oh my gosh, that's so
Oh,
exciting.
thank you so much. Thank you. And you'll
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, I'm gonna